looks like we are ready to go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special digital manufacturing talk. Beyond Analytics, AI Copilots shaping the future of manufacturing operations. My name is Tyler Fenhouse. I'm the marketing manager for SymphonyAI Industrial, and we've got Jeff Winters here with us, a very special guest speaker, Andy Allison, a product manager for the product we're going to be discussing today, and also Anderson Lemos, and he will be demoing our product after Jeff and Andy present. We do have a lot of people today, so everyone is going to be muted and silenced throughout the presentation, but we still want your questions. At the end of our presentation today, Andy, Jeff, and Anderson will be answering your questions right here live. If we don't get to your question, though, we will have someone from their team directly reach out to you. So don't be discouraged. Make sure you're getting those questions in the chat. That all being said, I'm going to pass it to Andy, and we're going to get this talk started.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. Well, good morning, afternoon or evening, depending on where you're from. Looks like we've got a full audience from all over the globe, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us today. What we're going to do is I'm just going to briefly speak and setting things up here before I hand it over to Jeff. And what we're going to cover today is Jeff will give us some fantastic insights about what's happening in the market around Industry 4.0, generative AI, and adoption around that. And after he provides this great detail, I just can't wait to see this again. Then I'm going to hand it over to Anderson, and he's going to just jump right in and show you these copilots and Gen AI in action, so you can get a real good sense of what does this look like and what might this do for me in my applications and in my deployments. And after that, we'll give a brief background on how does it work? What's the technology? How is it built? How is it deployed? And then, as Tyler mentioned, we're going to have try to leave about 10 minutes via Q&A, all via the chat here. So, Jeff, we're very honored to have you with us today. And by the way, congratulations on your recent LinkedIn Top Voice badge. That is a big deal and really, really cool. Jeff is a key contributor and an enthusiastic influencer within the Industry 4.0 market. And again, we're honored to have you with us today. And just to kind of set the stage as well, given Jeff is with Hitachi Solutions and we're representing SymphonyAI Industrial. And what we have here is SymphonyAI is a software solution provider using generative AI-based solutions. And Hitachi is a full-service digital transformation solution provider. So they are all in with Microsoft as a Microsoft solutions partner. So think about, we've got the software to drive that digital transformation, and Hitachi Solutions can also provide that full suite of services, whether it's from consultation, strategy, all the way to implementation. So I just wanted to kind of give that quick backdrop. But Jeff, why don't you kick things off and kind of give us the walkthrough of what's going on right now in the market?
Sure. Can see my screen now?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, like Andy said, hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Winter, and I'm the Senior Director of Industry Strategy for Manufacturing with Hitachi Solutions. And what that basically means is my job to help point my company in the right direction to become a best-in-class digital transformation provider for manufacturers. But in order to be successful at this, I have to be intimately involved with what's happening in the industry. And that's why I participate in so many industry associations, advisory groups, academic teams, research teams, and even standards bodies, so that I can stay current on the latest and greatest and share those insights internally to help our own company make better decisions, as well as externally with you. Now, most people know me as the Industry 4.0 guy, the guy who knows his stats and trends and industry benchmarks and best practices. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today are things I already have shared on LinkedIn. So if you enjoy this content, I would encourage you to follow me to stay up to date. There we go. All right. So one of the things I personally find exciting about my role and Hitachi in general is that although we help manufacturers digitally transform, most people forget or don't realize that we also are a manufacturer ourselves. And not just a manufacturer, but one of the largest in the world, the 24th largest to be exact. We have over 140,000 manufacturing employees working in over 400 facilities in 20 countries. We make everything from home appliances to elevators to measurement and analytics systems for healthcare and semiconductor to excavators to metal castings, railway systems, and even products for the nuclear power energy industry. This means we get to see the manufacturing world from many different angles at a pretty massive level, and not many companies can claim that. And some of the insights that we have learned, I plan on sharing with you today. Now, whenever we talk about Industry 4.0, I all like to make sure we're talking about the same thing. So Industry 4.0 is the nickname or the moniker given to the fourth industrial revolution. And as its name implies, it's a revolution in the way the entire industry operates, including the way everyone within it works, often resulting in major changes to society. So far, we've had three industrial revolutions. The first industrial revolution was in the 1700s, where we mechanized the world through taking advantage of water and steam power. The second industrial revolution came about in the late 1800s and early 1900s, where we invented the combustion engine and we electrified the world. The third industrial revolution came about in the late 60s, early 70s through the invention of the computer and the internet. And this era ushered in unprecedented information access and connectivity, allowing us to automate the world. And the fourth industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, is the era that we're living in right now. And it's all about connecting the digital and physical worlds together. But here's the way I like to describe it. Industry 3.0 is about automation, or the reduction of human intervention in processes. And Industry 4.0 is about cognition, or the process of acquiring knowledge and understanding. And what separates these two is your ability to properly capture and harness the power of data. And digital transformation can be thought of as the journey and the strategy to get to that vision of Industry 4.0. Now, this term was famously introduced in 2011 at Hanover Fair as part of the German high-tech strategy, and since then it's taken hold all across the world. However, there is no universally agreed upon definition, as it's taken on different meanings to different countries, agencies, academic groups, associations, and even companies. Heck, we can't even agree on all the technologies that are included in it. If you look at just IoT Analytics as one market research firm, they're currently tracking 17 different technologies as a part of it. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, digital twin, IoT, blockchain, cloud computing, edge computing, just to name a few. This means it's up to every company to come up with their own definition to figure out how to take advantage of all of these technologies collectively to thrive in this transformative time that we're living in right now. Now, as a response to the German initiative, most major countries developed similar initiatives. There was Made in China 2025, there was India's Made in India, and the US's Manufacturing USA, which in 2016 set up 17 different institutes specifically designed to help advance manufacturing, mostly funded by the Department of Defense or Department of Energy. SESME is one of them that's focused specifically on smart manufacturing, and MXD is another focused on digital manufacturing and cybersecurity. And these institutes collectively have spent over $425 million on 2,000 projects helping to advance the industry. And if you're not working with them, or at least using their free resources, you absolutely should be. Now, around 5 years ago, World Economic Forum partnered with McKinsey, and they've engaged thousands of factories looking for manufacturers that were deploying Industry 4.0, basically the best of the best of the best. Initially, they found a whopping 16, and every 6 months or so, they announced the next wave, and they're currently up to 153 as of December of 2023. And these lighthouse factories, as they call them, are implementing advanced manufacturing and AI-driven technology at scale and seeing significant gains. Now, one of the interesting things is that the Omika Works factory in Japan, a division of Hitachi, was actually recognized as one of those 153 lighthouse factories. And they did a whole bunch of really cool things. But just one example I'm going to share is they utilized IoT in a pretty advanced way in both the design and manufacture of their hardware. And they used around 80,000 RFID tags and 450 RFID readers to collect in real time information about who was doing what, where, and when. And this included introducing an entirely new system that automatically generates navigation data for assembly work based on 3D CAD data and used for design, and it automatically isolates the relevant video footage to identify when a problem occurs. And this resulted in reducing production lead times by 50%, 30% increase in productivity, 23% decrease in energy usage during peak times, and even 16% reduction in CO2 emissions. Pretty cool. And all these lighthouses, including Hitachi's, are publicly available. So if you want to learn more, I encourage you to look them up. So you might be thinking, that's great, Jeff. That's the best of the best. What about what average and just pretty darn good looks like? So I want to show you something launched in 2018 called the Smart Industry Readiness Index, which was actually developed by the Singapore Economic Development Board. And in 2020, they partnered with World Economic Forum and developed the Global Siri Initiative. And now they have over 150, at least at the time that they did this, certified Siri assessors. And what they do is they evaluate now thousands of manufacturers kind of around 3 different areas: organization, technology, and process, across 16 different dimensions. And each category is ranked 0 to 5, with 5 being the best. And it's often, looking at not just being fully predictable, but autonomous. And this is where AI excellence comes into play. Here are just a couple findings for you. Do you know the average overall score is a 1.55? Even the top 10% only has an average score of around 2.5. This means as an industry, we're just getting started. In case you're curious, semiconductor comes in at the highest, followed by electronics, and followed by pharmaceuticals. But what's also interesting is the KPIs companies use aren't even the same. The top 10% evaluate product quality as number 1, versus the middle 80 rank productivity as number 1. Very useful tool if you're looking to evaluate where you're at. Now, we loosely define Industry 4.0 as, kind of based on the changes that are happening, and digital transformation is the journey. But let's talk about the amount of money companies are spending on this. This image usually shocks people because they don't realize how darn much the manufacturing industry is spending on digital transformation. According to IDC research, discrete manufacturing alone is higher than every other industry, and that's only half of manufacturing. So they're over 20% higher collectively than the next highest industry. That's crazy. So let's talk about a little bit about why, at least one of the reasons. So consider this. According to IoT Analytics, we're surrounded by a staggering 16.7 billion connected IoT devices. And that doesn't even include laptops and cell phones. And it's these devices that are driving an unprecedented revolution in data generation. To put that in perspective, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, famously said in 2010 that the amount of data generated since the dawn of civilization up until 2003 was estimated to be 5 exabytes worth of data. Sounds impressive, right? But fast forward to 2024, and according to Statista, we're staring at a mind-blowing 147 zettabytes of data that we're anticipated to generate this year. To grasp that magnitude, that means that we're going to create 29,500 times the amount of data this year as we did in all of civilization up until 2003. That's crazy. But you might be wondering, yeah, but who's producing and who's collecting all that data? It's not the banks. It's not healthcare. It's not retail. It's not finance. It's manufacturing. According to McKinsey Global Institute, manufacturing is collecting nearly double the data volume as the next highest industry. Yet here's where reality sinks in. Out of the roughly 2,000 petabytes of data collected by the manufacturing industry over the past 10 years, the Industrial IoT Consortium estimates that we've let 99% of that data slip through our fingers, discarded like yesterday's newspaper. But here's an even starker revelation. According to Splunk, 55% of enterprise data is a mystery, unknown, unused by anyone in the company. Now, why does this matter? Because there's gold in that data. According to research done by University of Texas Austin, a 10% increase in data usability results in the average Fortune 1,000 company's revenue increasing by $2 billion. And my favorite statistic, according to McKinsey, data-driven companies are 23 times more likely to acquire new customers over their peers. So how much of that data are you using? Now, one of the groups I'm part of is IoT Analytics, a market research firm whose work I really respect. And every quarter they come out with this analysis called What Do CEOs Talk About? And they typically evaluate around 4,000 public earnings calls with a resulting visualization that's an indication of the digital and digital related topics of the CEOs prioritized in the previous quarter, which, for the last quarter was Q4 2023. So this is just a few weeks old. You could think of it like a buzzword barometer. 2 quarters ago, we saw a peak in ChatGPT with super high growth. No surprise there. And then we saw it drop the last quarter as ChatGPT dropped, but we saw an increase in generative AI, which is interesting because that doesn't entirely match Google Trends analytics that tells you what people are searching for in Google. And this transition to away from specific tools like ChatGPT to the broader generative AI suggests expansion of AI applications in enterprises and a recognition that companies won't really be using ChatGPT itself, but the technology behind it. Now, if you look at this past quarter, generative AI has also declined, but I think that's only because it had such a darn high growth the previous quarter. And I believe most of the hype and immediate need for companies to have a public response is mostly over. Now companies are focused less on talking about it, more on doing it. And here's another interesting thing, is that the broader AI is seeing an increase, 37% previous quarter, and it stayed strong this last quarter. So overall, the topic of AI is growing. So, and that's my segue into the topic of AI, the technology that's the best way to take advantage of all this data that we're producing and collecting as a manufacturing industry. Now, in the period spanning late 2022 to early 2023, the rise of consumer-facing generative AI tools marked a significant shift in both how the public and enterprises perceived AI's potential. And although discussions about generative AI's capabilities started with the introduction of GPT-2 in 2019, its full promise only became palpable to businesses recently. Text generating systems, epitomized by ChatGPT, harness large language models, or LLMs. And these LLMs are designed to understand what we ask it and to generate brand new, never seen before answers to questions, and not just search for answers and retrieving information. And while AI has been on organizations' radars, generative AI has democratized its application, allowing it to permeate every business facet. And this generative AI wave, I believe, is pushing AI from isolated applications to being an enterprise's central nervous system. Economic projections suggest that the AI evolution could infuse the global economy with roughly $2.6 to $4.4 trillion annually, according to McKinsey Global Institute. In addition, they're anticipating AI is potentially bringing forward the automation of half of all work a decade earlier than expected. Its influence on everything is undeniable. And simply put, ChatGPT single-handedly increased everyone's interest in the whole field of AI. According to research done by MIT, the criticality of AI in various business functions has been and will continue to shoot up dramatically. This is a huge jump from just a few years ago. And as you can see here, the functions of supply chain and manufacturing are near the top, both in criticality and growth. And on the right side here, if you compare that to a different report I found from McKinsey that evaluated the impact of AI across basically the same functions, not identical, but similar, they looked at AI's ability to both increase revenue and decrease costs. And the function of manufacturing specifically not only took the top spot for revenue increase, but it also took the top spot for cost decrease, including the most amount of companies claiming a 20% or more revenue increase through AI. This is powerful. So manufacturing should take note that the function of manufacturing is prime for the value of AI. Now, we already explained how digital transformation spend is the highest within manufacturing according to an IDC report. Well, according to a different IDC report, manufacturing is also the highest in terms of AI spend at 16.6%, with banking actually right behind it at 13.4%. So this tells me that proportionally manufacturing is spending less on AI than other industries, but I could argue that makes sense because other industries don't have the massive digital infrastructure requirements in manufacturing to take advantage of AI. So let's switch to adoption. This is where it's being used within the manufacturing industry. According to the Manufacturing Leadership Council's 2023 study on the future of industrial AI in manufacturing, 39% of manufacturers have adopted AI in production, the highest area by far. And if you look deeper in that category, the top use cases are plant floor IoT analysis, basically making sense of all the data that you're collecting, and predictive maintenance. And I would hope neither of those should be a surprise. Now, that being said, despite all the rise in value of AI, we're just getting started with AI, as it's usually considered the higher ends of the Industry 4.0 maturity scales. Now, according to the same study, only 29% of manufacturers have incorporated AI into formal corporate plans, and 28% are implementing AI operationally. Yet 96% expect AI investments to rise. The biggest problem? 61% of manufacturers don't have specific metrics on how to measure the effectiveness or impact of AI deployments. And this tells me two things. One, manufacturers are investing in AI before they even know what to do with it, probably because of FOMO, fear of missing out. Or manufacturers are looking for guidance from AI experts in the field to help them with their strategy and their plan. They don't know where specifically to apply it to know how to grade its success. Now let's talk about the different ways you can and should be thinking about AI within manufacturing. I came up with this framework to help companies think about AI the right way. And there are four major applications bases for AI: using it to predict, using it to analyze, using it to control, and using it to generate. So prediction helps you when you want to anticipate future outcomes based on existing data patterns. Demand forecasting and predictive maintenance are two of the hottest use cases right now for this. Analyzing is more when you want to just take advantage of AI to make sense of lots of data, sift through it and find patterns, correlations, and connections or anomalies that were previously too subtle or complex to be noticed. Oftentimes, this analysis can then feed back into predictive models. The third is control. The first two were really about augmenting human decisions by equipping humans with better information. This is where we're talking about letting AI take the wheel, actually making decisions for us. And the most common use cases here are visual-based quality control, where cameras can analyze hundreds to even thousands of pictures a second and take actions based on the information in those pictures. But also this can be used for process control, like a PID loop is a control feedback mechanism commonly used in industrial control systems that adjust processes based on proportional, integral, and derivative terms to maintain a set point. Whereas AI involves complex algorithms that can learn and make decisions from data. And unlike a PID loop, it can adapt to new scenarios without explicit programming for those conditions. And the last use case category, and the most popular right now, is generation. So AI isn't just a number crunching tool, it's also a powerful tool for creativity, especially in manufacturing. Now, AI can assist in generating new product designs, create custom solutions for niche markets. It can create or debug code, and it can even, make suggestions for product modifications based on user feedback or market demands. But here's where we get back to augmenting human decisions. And the applicability here is huge, as basically everyone who's ever looked up anything on a computer or ever needs to input anything into a computer will benefit from the generate use case. So I would argue that's basically everyone. Now, this framework should help kind of with your deployment of an AI strategy, because chances are each of your applications will use several of these coming together. So now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the generative AI. And this is where, if you look at it, the World Economic Forum kind of broke it up into three different major use cases that they found specifically for manufacturing. The first is assistance systems. So this is similar to thinking about like ChatGPT, where you enhance the efficiency of manual activities. This includes workforce questions and answers, specifically related to users manuals, maintenance manuals, bill of materials, standard operating procedures, HR policies, safety policies, you name it. And this could, even be where you help draft or troubleshoot code, and even at a PLC level, it's starting to be done. And this is where you can use to help develop, documents or reports. The second area is recommendation systems. Here, generative AI is making recommendations, helping the operators or other manufacturing employees pinpoint the most optimal solution for specific tasks. And this is an expansion of the first one, usually where a lot of copilots fit in. And lastly is autonomous systems. And this is where you have self-control and adaptability to new environments. And this relies on other forms of AI, specifically machine learning and deep learning. But generative, models like robotic transformers can process and understand sequential data more effectively, leading to more advanced behavior prediction and decision-making in autonomous systems. So this is kind of like the highest level within it. Now, there's one more I wanted to show you, and if we take the analysis of public case studies for generative AI, not just survey information, we get a much different view. IoT Analytics came out with a report last month that evaluated 274 public case studies that they could find on generative AI across all industries. They represent the use case companies want to see, which means 80% of these case studies were using generative AI within the product sold, not internally. Only 20% were internally, which is probably the reasons why manufacturing had such a low representation on here, because most of these were from software companies. Mostly Microsoft made up 55% of the case studies. So once again, this is a totally different way of looking at it, of how generative AI can be used, but text generation dominates the use cases, with summarization coming in next. So switching to the market, some of the optimistic news for manufacturing is that growth rate for generative AI in the industrial industry comes in second place at 70% growth over the next quite a few years, only second to technology industry at 78% growth. So we're going to see some massive movement in the next few years for manufacturing using generative AI. And with that, hopefully I inspired you today on the topic of Industry 4.0 and what's kind of happening out there with AI more broadly and generative AI specifically. And with that, I'd like to hand it back over to Andy. You're on mute.
I still am on mute.
There you go.
That was awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And I'll have your QR code up at the end here too, just in case as we move on and people want to make sure they are following you if they're not already, which they really should be. And as you were mentioning, the amount of data on how the volume of data that exists out there for manufacturing, I just envision the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark in that giant warehouse, right? It just disappears. So again, Jeff, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, before I hand it off to Anderson, I want to just give a quick backdrop on SymphonyAI and the areas that we focus on. And SymphonyAI Industrial is part of SymphonyAI, which is a global enterprise SaaS provider that focuses on advanced predictive and generative enterprise AI. We're headquartered in Palo Alto, California, and it's made up of a number of different divisions with a vertical focus on applications that really drives in on each individual vertical and having that deep dive expertise so that we can get much more industry specific value around AI and the software. And we think that really helps differentiate with more of a that focus rather than a horizontal AI platform or just a kind of a legacy vertical software provider. So SymphonyAI Industrial, we do focus on really the industrial insights that help with more autonomous plant operations and really about connecting people, assets, and processes. And that's what Anderson's really going to kind of help give us more examples around. And that's when we think about people, it's the workers on the floor, the connected workers, and empowering them with the tools that they need to be more effective, that they can get the work done faster, safer, but also tracking what's happening. You know, whether they're using AR or VR tools, those are we're capable of working with that, but it's really about enabling those workers to get things done faster and making sure that your assets are performing. So whether it's from asset health and performance, OEE, asset maintenance reliability, or predictive analysis, it's really leveraging those assets across the different industries that we work with. And then with the processes, whether it's process optimization and or execution and material and quality tracking and just overall plant analytics, individual or multi-factory type of deployments. So we can give you that view from drilling down close and give you more of a bird's eye view as well. But to make it a little more tangible, let me have Anderson actually walk you through more specific use cases of some of the tools and what these generative AI copilots can do for you today.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. Jeff, great job as always. Love to love to see you on here, and that was an excellent insight. I certainly learned a lot. I don't know about everybody else, but to put a little meat on the bone, if you will, from what you were talking about, we see that manufacturers do have a lot of data. The question is are they utilizing all that data, right? I like to say that data comes at a cost. Translating that data into information is where the value lies, right? So what we see here, it's we're going to put on our production or plant supervisor hat, and we're going to be looking at a power plant or a manufacturing plant or facility. As you can see, this is a relatively digitally mature company, right? They have some dashboarding, they have some insights into their operations, maybe some health score trends. This is the precursor to our Copilot for reliability. So what I'll do is I'll walk through this personality of doing some investigation on one of my assets and seeing that I might have an issue coming up, and then I'll transition over to the connected worker for that last mile, put the boots on the ground to go fix the problem, right? That's where we see a lot of the skills gap and the labor gap in manufacturing today. So I'll also show how Copilots and generative AI can help solve some of those issues as well, right? So instead of digging through a dashboard here, as you guys can imagine, you have multiple plants, multiple units. Each unit might have multiple components. Each component might have multiple sensors, right? If you have a pump, that could have a temperature sensor, a flow sensor, a current, electricity. There's a ton of data that could be coming in from one single asset. That can be hard to track, especially when you have companies the size of Hitachi, where you have hundreds of factories, thousands and thousands and thousands of units and pumps and assets all over the world. It can be very hard to track and keep on a single dashboard. So what we've come up with is this generative AI solution. Now I've prompted some of the questions to save time here, but you can imagine I have an alert. So there's a boiler feed pump here that you see that's popped up and says I have 3 alerts on this pump. So traditionally, the person would have to go and maybe do a fire drill style reaction. Oh man, there's a pump out on the floor. It's not working right, and now I have to get somebody running out there to go fix it. We're going to use our artificial intelligence, generative AI, in combination with our predictive artificial intelligence algorithm to determine this is in fact a problem, do some investigation, and work through that workflow here together. So I found out that, hey, this boiler feed pump has some alerts, and I want to maybe look at the data on a chart. Now, it's a lot of data coming in, time series data, so it might be coming in every couple seconds, minutes, maybe a couple hours. But essentially, I want to plot that data over time, and I want the same channel, so the same tag. In this case, it's the inbound journal bearing temperature. Now you have 2 different time zones overlaid of the same sensor. You can see that it is obviously running hotter. Now, this is an actual data set. This is not just a screenshot. So if I wanted to, I could zoom in on that single couple days or an hour of time and start analyzing the data further. So it is fully interactable. Now, the powerful thing here, to Jeff's point in talking about all this data, traditionally, when, me personally, I was on the manufacturing floor for about 12 years, hands-on. I was the guy who was doing this stuff. And previous to that, I was the guy who was out fixing this stuff and running the machines, right? Now, in order for me to figure out this problem or get this data into a friendly format that I could understand, I would have to go get a data scientist or a data analyst or somebody who could query the data. Now, I was the younger guy on the shop floor, so usually that guy was also me. I had to go figure out how to query this data. Maybe it was contextualized, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was in the right place. Most likely it wasn't. 12 years ago, manufacturing data was kind of disparate and all over the place. Now we've come up with these tools that have helped us, but essentially I'm able to ask my Copilot to query this data for me. I don't have to use a data analyst. I don't have to use a data scientist. I don't even have to write any query code or any code at all. I could just interact with it in plain language and say, give me the journal bearing temperature from this day to this day and overlay it from this day to this day. Now, That's really cool, right? This is a rear view mirror. It's giving me historical data. Now I'm going to go one step further and actually use AI to forecast this data out. Now you'll see here that I'm asking it to forecast 3 days starting February 28th. My data set for this demo is trained up until February 28th. So for all intent, today is February 28th according to my demo environment. But from February 28th left, you see that red line. That's my data that's already been actually logged. On the right, you see pushing into March there, it's actually blue, and that's actually predicted data. So the AI system is not only generative in the fact that it can generate charts and text and multimodal, but it's actually able to tap into our predictive algorithms that SymphonyAI has inside of our asset performance maintenance solution, but it can actually predict out what's going to happen. So as you can see here, it looks like my temperature was rising on this bearing, and then I'm kind of going to hit this little blue line. I'm going to get a little raise and then a flat line. Now that flat line might be good or bad, right? It could be a bad sensor. It could also buy me some time. So I know that my bearing isn't going to catastrophically fail over the weekend, but it's going to say, hey, you're going to have a couple days. So in my mind, I'm thinking about what should I do next? How should I approach this problem, right? Maybe I don't need to replace it. So maybe I have some questions around that, and I can actually work with my Copilot to ask for some recommendations. So I say, hey, I have this alert, the number on it is 17496 that we've been interacting with here. What should I do? So the first thing it says is monitor variability. Yep, we've been doing that. We've been kind of looking at some different data sets, plotting some different points. The next thing we should do is maybe go inspect this pump and see if something's actually wrong with that, right? Go do a physical inspection. All the software in the world is great, but eventually you need somebody to go get their hands on this thing and make sure that something is either right or wrong or something in between. Let's actually figure this out. Somebody needs to go do some actual work. So I'm actually going to follow that instruction. I say, hey, yep, I think that's a good idea. Let's go inspect this pump. Now, traditionally in manufacturing, right, what would you do here? You'd pick up a walkie-talkie, maybe pick up a cell phone and call somebody. Maybe you would issue a ticket inside of a maintenance system, something along those lines. Now I'd have to log out of this application, log into another application, start a ticket, something to go fix it. Maybe there's an integration. Instead, I can just ask my Copilot to do it for me and save some time, right? And just go do an bearing inspection, and it automatically knows I'm using my Proceedix application, which is my connected worker application. Now, as you can see, I've done a pretty thorough investigation of what's going on with this pump and this alert that I'm getting. With no code, very natural language, like you would interact with ChatGPT when you're asking it, what are the 10 best restaurants downtown that serve pizza, right? It's kind of the same interaction, very, very clean back and forth. Now I'm going to take off my maintenance supervisor hat or production plant operator supervisor hat, and I'm going to put on my maintenance technician hat, and I'm going to switch over to my connected worker view. Now, in this scenario, what we're doing is we're picking up the story from my supervisor has told me that I need to go inspect something on this asset. In this case, it's a bearing. Now, I'm going to go out on the shop floor. I'm going to go find this asset. I've been told which asset it is. I have that metadata already. And it's going to ask me to scan an asset barcode. This is a double check. So what I want to do is make sure that Anderson, who is now the maintenance technician out on the shop floor, is working on the correct asset. So in this case, the correct answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I entered the wrong answer, it would say, hey, you're at the wrong place. Go to the left 500 feet and go back to the back of the shop near the CNC machines or something along those lines, right? Now, here, of course, connected worker solution, you have nice big pictures, nice big text. I can read. You need to give me some readings off of this flow rate gauge. Okay, got it. It's 5. It's reading 5. That's good. We're going to double check that bearing temperature next. Now, remember the APM solution was telling me, my supervisor, that there was a bearing that was overheating. Now, we want to make sure that bearing is in fact overheating because we saw some flatlining there happening after a while. Maybe that's a bad sensor. Maybe it's just actually running hot. So we're going to take a temperature reading, and we're going to say here, we're just going to confirm that, yep, it's running at 100 degrees Celsius, which is in fact hot. So the next order it's going to ask me for is, are you hearing any weird noises? And this is where I'm going to start leveraging my Copilot. So I'm going to say yes here instead of no. And it's going to, I don't know exactly what to do next. Let's imagine in this scenario that I am maybe a little bit newer to this asset, or maybe I'm not very intimately known in the knowing this asset or this process. Now I can come over to this Copilot. Now, instead of, let's say I run into an issue out on the shop floor today. I would have to go call a senior technician, somebody who's been around for a long time, maybe has a lot of tribal knowledge. When I grew up on the manufacturing floor, we did that very often. But there was usually one, maybe two senior guys, if that, and there was a flurry of guys that didn't have that kind of knowledge, right? Newer, you know, we see it in the skills gap and in the labor shortages all over the place. So that's pretty common. So you'd either have to go through senior technician, or I'd have to go through some kind of a manual, something that looks like this. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I can read through this and maybe understand some of it. There's a lot of small text. You know, maybe try to understand like what this chart is telling me. I don't really know what this is telling me, and I don't know how this really applies to the issue at hand, which is my bearing is hot, right? Like how do I take this information and apply it to my scenario? Well, let's, instead of going through all that different sources and trying to nail that down, which can take a very long time, I can just go in here and ask my Copilot, hey, what are some, you know, abnormal bearing sounds that I probably shouldn't hear? And it can just give me a simple response and say, hey, if you're hearing any hissing, you know, that could be a small bearing with rough raceways, kinds of things like that. And I can start from here doing my diagnostics and saying, I know I'm hearing something weird, but let's say, for example, I'm hearing some growling, you know, and now the interesting thing here is I'm actually asking it what could cause that. I'm not just saying what I'm hearing. I'm telling it I'm hearing a bearing that's growling. And what could cause that, and what should I do about it, more importantly, right? So first, it's what's causing that could be some insufficient or excessive lubrication, poor insulation, you know, the things that could cause that. And then I'm asking it, what should I do? And it actually says you should stop and take appropriate action. Maybe that could be checking or eventually replacing the bearing. So now I've interacted with my Copilot. I've done this. I've come to this conclusion, and I'm going to say from here, okay, yep, I get it. Now I'm pretty sure that this bearing is toast. I need to replace this bearing. Instead of having to go through the rest of my whole procedure, I can just right from here just say, hey, send this over. I'm going to escalate this to my supervisor. It is a maintenance problem, and I'm just going to say, hey, the bearing needs to be replaced, and send that off. Now, I didn't have to pick up a walkie-talkie. I didn't have to go and find my supervisor. I just send this off to him, and back on his screen, like you guys saw earlier, it's going to say the investigation was complete. Anderson found that there was a problem with the bearing, and it needs to be replaced. So we're really taking generative AI, giving you that, you know, wealth of knowledge in very simple, plain language, and also closing the digital feedback loop. So we're getting rid of paper, we're getting rid of time-consuming administrative tasks and all of those, and sending it back to the digital format to the supervisor and the other different reporting structures that there might be, where, you know, dashboarding and those kinds of things. That's kind of the demo in a nutshell of, you know, going from I have a problem with a machine all the way down to the guy that's going to fix it, everything being done digitally and greatly enabled with generative AI. Like I said, I spent a lot of time on the manufacturing floor myself, and man, this tool is super powerful. Would have saved me a lot of time, right, Andy?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we've got a lot of things that we're trying to do for our customers today, and just simplifying their lives, right? And so the more we can do that, the more the value you see, you know, quantitatively and qualitatively. And I know we're limited on time. I want to definitely have enough time for us to do some more Q&A. So I'm just going to briefly walk through a little bit more of the background of how does this work and how does it get built out and deployed. And Anderson, we've got a lot of systems that we have to connect to. Now we're talking sensors, we're talking assets directly, we're talking historians. There's a lot of data sources and protocols by which you've got to be able to get to the data. So we do have solutions today that we can just get to the data. Because depending on where any given organization is at, they might already have that warehouse of data, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they just need help to get to it and connect to it, and we can facilitate that. Or they've already got a nice clean data lake, and it's really about doing the transformation. Either way, we can help with that key step in the process, and we also use AI tools to help do that rapidly, right? So, for example, if you had some chart like a P&ID ingestion that you need to do, instead of taking weeks just to go through and identifying what are all these assets and systems and functions and tagging them, we have an ability to go in and just pull it off of there and using AI automatically identify all this, and with very high accuracy and flagging things for the user and prompting them to get a better idea of where do you need to double check and validate that data. And then we build upon that. So like I said, if you have that data and or you need help with that, we can provide that key step. And we have partners like Hitachi who can solutions do that as well, right? And leveraging these tools. And from there, you've got the contextualization, right? In order to do really good analytics and even AI on top of that, you've got to have the right data and making sure that that is clean. So we use the tools, the AI tools, to get that. And then from there, really having more of that knowledge graph and bringing in that industry expertise that we have around the systems and the data points and the assets identifications and tags, leveraging those into predictive models. And the other thing that we're able to leverage is we, in fact, last quarter, launched the world's first industrial LLM. So we understand the challenges and the systems and the tools very, very well, and we were able to leverage that. And it really brings that back into this knowledge graph where it's not just a logical, but also a visual representation to help understand how all of this is correlated. Again, that builds upon that to do more of that analysis. And then after that, it's applying the applications, right? We've got your systems connected. We've got the contextualization, a unified namespace of your data in your systems. And whether it's applying that to process and digital manufacturing or just doing process improvement and asset performance, we have that as well. And then all of that going down into supporting and tracking our maintenance and reliability with workers, et cetera. Anderson, anything else you want to add on this one?
Yeah, I think, if you look at it, the big thing for me is that if you were to, benchmark solutions, and I'm sure there's nuances of each one, right? Like you like this a little better. I like the way this button looks better. But I think the big thing, the value there that you're talking about when you connect these three pieces of the puzzle, right? Connect, context, and analyze, is that Symphony has this full suite, right? I can go from asset performance maintenance all the way to connected worker and have all the generative AI copilots complementing each step of the way as one big value, right? I think that's a big one that adds on to all of these different pieces of the layer of if you're stacking up a cake, right, that it equals one big pie. I think that's very valuable in pretty unique scenarios. And leading right into your next slide, I'll let you take this one.
Well, no, I mean, you got it, right? it's that we have that comprehensive approach. So depending on the needs in the industry and the segment within manufacturing, there's going to be different areas of focus, and where leveraging generative AI and these tools can really come into play immediately. So depending again where you are on that journey, we can help you along that along those lines. And we do have our industrial LLM. It's out there. You can go to our website. You can register and sign up. But it's one of the things that we're proud to have launched in partnership with Microsoft. We are, again, a Microsoft partner. We build things upon Azure, and it's an incredible innovation. And again, we're proud to be able to offer that out into the market and leverage that as part of our overall solutions. So again, when we look at how we are driving this to market and supporting our customers and our partners for these deployments, it's really about helping to provide that really tailored and deep contextual insights so that things are much more contextual, right? It allows for a better understanding of the nuances of what may be happening in your operations and your assets and your people. So that's really what we're trying to drive here. And we've gone through a lot of information very quickly. And there's certainly a lot more we can share. And I could listen to Jeff for another 2 hours. And I think he probably has the energy for it too.
He does.
If you are heading to Texas or happen to be in the area, we are in fact doing a AI summit down in Houston week after next, January 23rd. There are still a few spaces available, but you need to register quick if you are interested in attending. We'd love to see you there, and this will be a full day and be a lot more detail and data and demonstrations that we'll be able to provide down in Texas in, like I said, just less than a week, or sorry, just over a week. So with that, want to keep this up here, and Tyler, you can help us with some of the Q&A, but you can see here, get in touch with myself, Anderson. Again, if you're not following Jeff, you should be. And I have a feeling most of you probably already are. And we'll leave up the registration here information. And of course, if you want to just dive right in and get more information for how our applications can help you today and just get a much more deep dive demo for your application and use cases, please reach out. We're happy to help.
Awesome.
Tyler.
All right. Yes, the chat has been buzzing, and Mike Pedersen has been jumping in. Appreciate that, Mike. He's our director of development, and he's been answering some of your questions and reaching out. Jeff, did you see any chats near the top that during your presentation that reached out to you? Everybody, if you want to get your questions in, now is the time. Hit up the chat. But there have been some. I can start at the bottom here if you want me to.
I wasn't looking at the chat during while I was presenting.
That's all right. Okay, somebody's reaching out about the Texas event. We will get back to you on that. But I'll start at the bottom here. Williamson Connor asks, have you had any issues with scrutiny of data with MSTF?
Our company personally, no.
Yeah.
We haven't had any issues. Our Proceedix application and some of our applications even have SOC 2 type 2 compliance or security and regulations and things like that. And we're in some very stringent environments, whether it's government or pharmaceuticals or different, sensitive manufacturing environments. No, we have not had any issues. We've seen pretty secure, and especially delving into this generative AI space where, large amounts of data, that has always been a concern, and it continues to be something that we're on top of. But we haven't had any issues.
Okay. All right. People are there's a lot of interest in the Texas event, which is great news. We appreciate that, and we hope to see a lot of you there. All right, here's another question. How to how to capture the expert knowledge is shown in your bearing example?
That's a great question. So, the first thing we usually do is work with the customer to see what's being done, right? Generally, customers have some level of standard operating procedures. So we'll work with them to digitize that. If they have none, then we'll work with them to start building them, and understanding where the gaps are. First, you have to kind of put the cards on the table and understand where everything is. We do have some AI tools for importing things. So if you have a standard format or something similar, we can start scraping PDFs and importing that as well. So we have a couple of different methodologies to getting that onto a digital format. Our applications are also extremely easy to build. So low node code environment where you can build super easy, the very, very low learning curve. So we make it as easy as possible for manufacturers, especially, with the personnel that are using it, make their life as easy as possible so that they can use it and adopt it. That's the main thing that we do to ensure.
All right, awesome. Here is a pretty general question. How long does this take to implement directionally?
That can be a tough one. I mean, right, it depends on size and scope. Could be a couple days, could be a couple months. If it's, hundreds of plants around the world and the customer has a phased approach, which is pretty common, right? We don't want to come in and boil the ocean, then it could be a year or two long project. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your project, whoever asked the question, and kind of see, what a scope of something could look like, and we can give you an idea of what that implementation would take. But because of the range of size of customer and implementation and size of, quantity of locations, then it can be hard to answer what implementation would look like. But yeah, it's something in that range.
But we do pride ourselves on the speed of which we're able to implement versus what they've seen in the past. It's just come as you are.
Yeah.
Bad pun, but think Nirvana. Come as you are. Give us the data wherever you're at, and we can actually drive that into really quick results.
Yeah, it's a great point. And Andy, to add to that too, comes to mind a project that we worked on recently where using our new AI PNID ingestion methodology, we went from, you had this very, very complex architecture inside of a plant, where you had to essentially, you have sensors and assets, and you have to do tag mapping all the way from, the PLC to the software. There's a lot that happens in between there. We would take a week or two, traditionally something along those lines, to create that architecture. Using our AI PNID ingestion that Andy was talking about earlier, it went down to literally a couple of hours, and it was very, very accurate. And then you just kind of come in and fine tune things with the human touch. So we've greatly accelerated those kinds of deployments because of these AI tools, for sure.
Awesome. All right. And some people are asking for a recording of the video. I will have that up later in the day, so I'll have a link for everybody that needs one. All right. Here's a question. What is the roadmap to implement Gen AI for a manufacturing unit? That might be long to explain.
Yeah, no, want to know more specifically what they'd
You
be
need more
looking-
context. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then someone asks how to get in touch with the speakers personally. The QR codes there will take you directly to their LinkedIn if you want to reach out on LinkedIn. Let me see here. Some more interest in the Texas Summit, which also that QR code for the Texas Summit will take you to the registration page. So go ahead and scan that and it'll take you directly there. I'm just checking out the chat. Some people are asking for copies of the presentation. Will those be available, Anderson and Andy? Like a PDF version of your PowerPoint?
But we can certainly
Yeah, mine will be available too.
Make it available.
Great.
Yep.
This one looks like it's for Jeff, but it's kind of vague. It says, what about life sciences, Jeff?
What would you like to know about it? There's an entire moniker for that, Pharma 4.0. So it depends on what you're looking at. I'm familiar with more the manufacturing side of life sciences because life sciences can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So depending on what topic, that would be something we could talk about. There are areas where I'm going to call it more pharmaceutical and med devices are thriving, as opposed to, like I said, life sciences can mean a lot of different things. I'm just familiar with the manufacturing portion of it. So if you have a specific questions, I can answer about it, but let me know.
Right.
Reach out to me.
All right. So it looks like we are rounding the top of the hour. There is a lot of questions here. We apologize, and we don't want to go over and take up any more of the presenters' time. We really appreciate it, guys. Jeff, big thank you. Fantastic presentation. We're very happy to have had you today, and it looks like the chat is just overwhelming gratitude that you put this on today with us. So thank you very much. Yeah. And to Andy and Anderson, great presentations. Anderson, great demo. Thank you for presenting that to the audience. And thank you to the audience. A lot of you, everyone that held out to the end, we had a great turnout. We really appreciate that. And to our audience, if we didn't get to your questions again, we will reach out directly. Jeff, Andy, or Anderson, or someone from their team will definitely reach out to you. And I'll have this recording available later in the day for everyone. So if you want a recording, throw that in the chat right now. Jeff, thanks again. And everyone, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you,
everyone.